What's going on, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Breaking News Bears. We have the NL Central on cue. 5 teams. We're going to discuss them all, and 5 interesting teams as well. The NL Central, in recent news, has been a bit of a wild division where you can see just about everyone make a run for the playoffs. So you're going to look at teams in this episode that are going to be a little wishy-washy. They're in a different stage than the other top-end heavy-powered teams, but they still have a chance to make a playoff. That is how the NL Central is shaping up to be. But I'm going to juice everyone else here. I am joined by Evan Davis and Mateo Ruiz, just as always. And to get this one off the books, we have a big announcement as well. If you guys have not been tuning in, we have a new sports network that we have launched, and Breaking News Bears is part of it. It is called DSN. You could find it. The link will be in the description below, and it would also be on our page on the screen right now. We're going to have a couple templates out and running for the background of the screen. Pretty cool. And new thumbnails. So everything is coming up. Breaking News Bears coming up, Dynasty Sports Network, and you could check out just about everything sports related on that website. So please check it out. I would appreciate it. And yeah, that is Breaking News Bears, the big news we have for today. You can sweat that one off the agenda, but let's get right into NL Central. We'll start with the Milwaukee Brewers. They're a pretty interesting team, to say the least. I'm going to ask you guys about their offseason grade. Personally, I gave them a B+, and I think I'm being a little bit too generous with that one. They bring in Renfroe, they keep Rowdy Tellez, but other than that, and I know the pause is going to be pretty continuous when we talk about all these teams and what they've done in the offseason, but those are the 2 guys that I found out that are headlining their names in the offseason. I'm going to turn it over to you, Evan. What do you make of the offseason for the Brewers? Are we going to see anything major coming out of them, or what are your outlook on this team?
Yeah, I actually gave them an A. And the reason why I gave them an A is because I don't think they need to do anything with their team. And we'll get into it later with the Brewers specifically. I do think first base, they need an upgrade at. That's where a guy like Anthony Rizzo could potentially come in via free agency. I mean, Rowdy Tellez is great. Mediocre first baseman, has the power, but just defensively isn't there. Anthony Rizzo has the power and is there defensively. So, I think if they could bring a guy like Anthony Rizzo in, that bumps it up to me to an A+. But when you're a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, you just won 95 games, I believe it was. Like, there's not much you really need to do. Like, there's a reason why you win that many games.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're looking at a lineup perspective as well, and I'm interested that you brought up Anthony Rizzo, I might be bringing it up in another team that we might be discussing, maybe a reunion with these guys right here. Who knows? I've been seeing some bold
He's got his
predictions.
jersey on.
Of course. I've been seeing some bold predictions thrown around this over this month or so, just about the baseball world. And that was one of them, which is pretty interesting. And it would be pretty cool to watch if you were to return to Chicago. But again, this roster is pretty well off. I have them running the division. I got them sitting between 85 to 90 wins. Before I get into the win column, I'm going to turn over to Mateo. What do you see from the offseason? What are you going to grade with them? And what are you seeing from this Milwaukee Brewers that maybe we can see once the free agency resumes as well?
Yeah, I'm sitting on around a B- like you as well. I mean, obviously the real strength of this team is their pitching, but I think if they want to do anything in the postseason, if they want to have any sort of like World Series contention aspirations, I think that the obvious thing here is they need to add a bat. And if that bat can come at first base, I know I talked about Matt Olson being a possible trade candidate in the past, and that's a sword I kind of want to die on. I'd really love to see Matt Olson in Milwaukee. I think that'd be a great fit. But yeah, it's a B- for me right now. Renfroe's a decent ad, but they need to go and get bats if they want to be a serious contender instead of just winning the division and just making the postseason, right?
Absolutely. And a team who has this sort of aspiration of they're going to be probably sitting around or floating around that one spot, you're going to want to probably have some depth and have some big boppers to go into the postseason and run that table. And I'm absolutely in with you as well. And let's speak it into existence, because I want to see Matt Olson. I know how much I have a soft spot for my Oakland Athletics, but I would love to see Matt Olson in a decently contending team with that kind of lineup. And you look at the lineup, especially that middle infield looks pretty good with Colton Wong, and I believe Willie Adames is there at short. It is they got some things cooking in Milwaukee, and I think their offseason is going to get even better once the play resumes, and we're going to have to hit that one when we get there. I'm going to turn over to you guys about the record. I said it briefly. 85 wins is what I see them, the ceiling at 90. Not to say that that's a bad record. I think they're going to be running the table pretty fresh and pretty well. Evan, what do you got with the record here? The Milwaukee Brewers, again, we've been saying this all throughout. They're a pretty complete team, only missing that one power bat, and if they get that, maybe it'll put them over the top and see these win records sort of skyrocketing a little bit.
Yeah, I have their record at 99 wins with a ceiling of 102. Like, I think that, I mean, they won 95 games last year, and well, call me crazy. I don't think the Cardinals are that good. I think it's kind of just like a team that got hot towards the end of the year, won 15 in a row, skyrocketed from a team out of the wild card to first to in the wild card at the end of the year. I don't see them as a contender again, and the reason why I give them a ceiling of 102 wins is because I do see them adding in a piece at first base specifically, given that that's kind of their weak link defensively. But I mean, offensively, Rowdy Tellez is great. He's a power bat, but no, that's why I have them at 102 at the ceiling.
Interesting. And Mateo, what about you? Do you got him around the same length, or are you going to stick around me? I think I'm a little bit lower on that scale, to be quite honest with you. But what do you see about the Milwaukee Brewers? Where are they going to be posting in the win column?
I think I'm kind of the halfway point between the both of you. I have them at around 91 wins. I think that's a realistic threshold for them. But I have their ceiling at 97. I think they can definitely take this division by a large margin if, you know, the right players get hot and if they get what they're expecting out of their pitching. But 91 wins is, I think, a fair estimate for this team, just because, again, you're missing that big bat. You're missing the guy that's going to sort of solidify you as a, you know, from a playoff lock to like an actual contender. I think you need that extra bat. And I think that's the, you know, the 6-win allowance that I gave them.
Yeah, and I mean, offense has always been something that the Brewers struggled with, especially last year. Hence why we bring up the big bat sort of talk, because you're going to want that guy to bring in all the runs and put your team over the top. But I'm looking at the lineup right now. It's right in front of me. Christian Yelich, you're kind of banking on him to get back into the swing of things, and we'll discuss him in just a bit. I thought the Hunter Renfroe addition was quite nice. It complements that outfield very nicely. Omar Navarro is a catcher. Like you have a very good base to build around right now. And if you can get that one guy, I think you're well off with your Brewers. But we'll talk about one guy in specific. One guy do you think might be the team MVP for the Milwaukee Brewers? We'll start with you, Mateo, then I'll work my way to Evan. Personally, for me, I got right here, Willy Adames. I just love his swing. I love what he can do off the bat, and he's such a great defender as well. That's my personal slice on it, but what about yours?
Yeah, I definitely will be talking about Willy Adames later. He might be one of my my picks later, just to tease that. But as far as MVP goes, again, I don't think he's on the roster just yet. I don't think the team MVP for the Milwaukee Brewers is on their roster. I think it is that I want to believe that big bat is coming, and I want to believe that this is an ad that they're going to make. And whether it's Anthony Rizzo, whether it's Matt Olson, whether it's Freddie Freeman, whether it's whoever you want it to be, I believe the MVP is going to be that guy, because that's the guy that's going to take him over the threshold. Honestly, if the ad doesn't come, it could be Christian Yelich. Like the ad could be just getting the MVP production that you thought you were going to get out of Christian Yelich. It's just about, you know, having that guy in the heart of your order, that 2 or 3 spot that's going to propel you to greater heights. And, you know, we talk about it being a first baseman, but honestly, it could come from anywhere. But I want to believe that the MVP isn't on the roster yet, just because I'm hopeful that they're going to make a big splash.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's very definite, and it could be lying in the stars if you're the Milwaukee Brewers. Everyone's talking about it. We're all talking about it, and it can very well come into existence once the offseason resumes. Evan, who do you got for the team MVP? Is he currently on this team, or are you going to take a similar path to Mateo, and is it going to be someone they add going forward?
I mean, like I was going to say Christian Yelich, but I'll go different just for the sake of this. I'm going to go Corbin Burns, just because that guy, I mean, it's pitching that ultimately wins you a title. As much as you want to say it's the bats that win it, it's honestly the pitching. I mean, they're the reason why you are successful. And Corbin Burns did not deserve the Cy Young last year, should have been Max Scherzer, but he is incredible, and the velocity that he has and the power that he can throw his fastball and all, like, just the plethora of pitches is the reason why teams are afraid to play the Brewers in a playoff series and having to face him in a game 1. So I'll go Corbin Burns, but I do have Christian Yelich. I had them actually as like 1A and 1B, you know, like if it's not going to be Christian Yelich, it will probably be Corbin Burns, but yeah, I'll go with him.
And you mentioned the plethora of pitches with Corbin Burns. You can even mention the plethora of pitchers with the Milwaukee Brewers. They have a terrific, and I think we were talking about it a couple of weeks ago about the Milwaukee Brewers. They got a lot of depth in the starting position. I believe, like I'm looking right now, Burns, Woodruff, Peralta, even Hauser. He's a flamethrower from the mound. There's a lot of key pieces there. And then you look at the bullpen, Devin Williams and Josh Hader, who I am very high on him. I got him personally in this next squad here. That's the Cy Young for this team. That guy, he can do it just about all. He is the reason why you're winning games winning late games. So that's my pick for the team Cy Young. What do you guys got? There's a big list to choose from, because this is one of the best starting rotations we've seen in the MLB in quite some time. But Dale, what do you got for the team Cy Young for the Milwaukee Brewers?
Yeah, I got Brandon Woodruff, which might be a little bit of a surprise pick because everybody's always
Mhm.
thinking Corbin Burns, but I think he's a guy that definitely got a little overshadowed last year. I think he was a very excellent pitcher. And honestly, going into the season, I honestly was higher on Brandon Woodruff than I was on Corbin Burns. I think his pitch selection, I think it appeals a little bit more to me as something that just like fits the mold of what is successful in baseball. I mean, they're not too separate. And obviously the break on Corbin Burns' sinker and cutter is what separates them. But I think Brandon Woodruff is that model of a consistent pitcher and what we were used to seeing what a consistent pitcher can be. And I think that the coaching staff in Milwaukee have a chance to, I think we've seen what Corbin Burns is as his best, and he's a fantastic player. I think Brandon Woodruff has that next extra step that he can kick into that can put him on that level of maybe he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball. And I hope we get to see it from him next year.
And yeah, you mentioned the starting pitching with Brandon Woodruff. It's just a blessing for the Milwaukee Brewers. They got so many guys that they can turn to whichever day of the week and can get it done. Evan, who do you see on the Cy Young on the bump getting it done for the Milwaukee Brewers?
I'm going to go Josh Hader because I think he's the best closer in all of baseball. And I mean, that guy, he throws like sidearm kind of, and just like it makes it damn near impossible for for batters to react to that. Because like the way that the ball's just coming off the mound and then the way where it lands, it's incredible. And closers, they're at the end of the game the reason why you win. And having a guy like Josh Hader, that going into the 9th inning, he's going to at least get you a 1-2-3, or if not, it's the max it's going to go to is the 4th batter. So you have a lot of confidence when you have a guy like Josh Hader, and I think he's definitely going to be a key component to the Milwaukee Brewers' success.
And let's spend a little bit of time with Josh Hader. I think he deserves a lot of love, and he doesn't get as much love in the league just because of the sense that he's a closer in the position that he plays. But where do you rank, if you're going to rank maybe your top 3 closers in the MLB, where is Josh Hader ranking? Is he above all else number 1? Because for me, I think there's a really wide gap between him and the rest of the pack. I think he's a clear shot for number 1.
I would put him at 1. I do him at 1, Mark Melancon at number 2. And then I would probably put Kenley Jansen at 3. Like, as much as I do hate on him, he always is top 5 in saves in the MLB. Granted, he's always put in the best position to get those saves, but he's still saving 40 of 45 opportunities. So I'll give it to him as maybe the 3rd.
For me, I think I've got Hendricks, Hader, and then Iglesias.
Oh, I forgot about Hendricks.
I think those are kind of my picks. I think Iglesias is very slept on. I don't think I'm ready to put Hader as the number 1 because, I mean, obviously we've seen he can be a little shaky in big spots, and that's sort of the only knock on his game is that Hader, you think back to that game with, Trent Grisham. Hader is the one who sort of enabled that situation to happen. I mean, obviously the ball got under Grisham's glove, but wouldn't have been in that situation if Hader, came in and shut it down. And obviously a lot to ask from the guy, but I have him as my 2. Hendricks is the 1. And then to round out the top 3, I'll put Iglesias there.
Awesome. I completely forgot about Hendricks. He's number 1. My bad. I think he's the best closer in baseball. And that's it. I would put him at number 1. He's definitely dominant.
And I mean, I'm going to stick to my guns. I still got Hader number 1. And obviously it is a big flaw. And when you're measuring a position like a closing pitcher, those big games are going to mean a lot. That puts a lot of, has a lot of say in how and where you rank your closing pitchers. I still think Josh Hader's got such electric stuff to keep him on the number 1 hill for me, but it's definitely a little bit closer than I think I would have imagined off the hop. Liam Hendricks, he is a terrific talent off the mound when it's in big game situations. And Iglesias as well. You mentioned him, Mateo. He is very slept on, and I think we're going to see a lot more of him come the spring and throughout the rest of the MLB season when it does resume. And let's go to our second last one here. You want to say one thing?
Hendricks cursing during the All-Star game while he was mic'd up was probably the funny.
Well, he did. If you're ranking characters, he's definitely number 1 in my
God,
that
he's
guy
like
is a character.
The hot mic the entire time on the mound. It was so
I don't think he'll get one of those again.
No,
he's if he makes the All-Star team, they're definitely remembering the fact that he has the hot mic. But sorry, I thought that was hysterical.
No, for sure. And I mean, he's a cool cat to say the least. But we're going to look at this cool cat who was running the roost, I believe in 2017 when he took home a MVP trophy. I believe it was 2017 or 2016, one of those years. But when he hit Milwaukee, he hit the ground off and running. Between his time with Miami. But what do you see from a guy like Christian Yelich? He's my make or break player for the Milwaukee Brewers. I think if you're going to get the production from him, we haven't seen it over the last couple of years. I think he's going to turn heads this year and he's going to pick it back up. We all know how baseball is a streaky sport. You could have some low spells in your career and you could pick it up just randomly. And we're going to see a bunch of players that I'm going to mention in this show about guys that have done just that. But who is your make or break player for the Milwaukee Brewers this season? I'll start with you, Mateo, then I'll work my way to Evan.
Yeah, my make or break player is a guy that I think you named him as your MVP. I had Willy Adames, and obviously the struggles in Tampa Bay were well documented last year. We don't need to revisit that, but not a pretty start to the season in Tampa Bay, which is how he ended up in Milwaukee. Obviously, they had to make space for some young infielders, but his season was kind of like a tale of two sort of different seasons in essence. Like he had that really struggling time in Tampa Bay where maybe he felt the pressure from Wander Franco coming up from behind him. And then, he gets to Milwaukee and maybe he gets a little more comfortable and he starts to, really perform. And I think the big question mark is, the version of Willy Adames that we saw in Milwaukee was, marginally better than any version of Willy Adames that we've seen in Tampa Bay. And my question in my head is wondering, are we going to get just the normal Tampa Bay Willy Adames, like regression back to the mean? Or are we going to get, this new version of Willy Adames that, is solid in his and is comfortable being the starting shortstop and is a guy that's going to be, potentially a leadoff hitter for this team, potentially, that bat in the core of the lineup that's going to, start to make a difference. And what you're going to get, Willy Adames is going to be a great player either way, but how great is sort of the question I have. And I think this season is going to go a long way to determining that.
And he's going to get the opportunities. Absolutely. He's going to be batting in the top 3 at most, or at least rather. And he's going to get the opportunities at shortstop. You mentioned that the discomfort between an upcoming shortstop in Tampa Bay right up his heels. Now he has full comfort down there. And I think he's going to succeed from that. Personally, I have him as the MVP just because I think he can bring so much when he's turning that switch on. It's a matter of this is with every player in the MLB, if that player can actually turn that switch on come big games, big moments, and of course, through the course of the regular season. Evan, who do you got for your team? Your team make or break for the Milwaukee Brewers?
My team make or break is Christian Yelich. And last year, both the MVPs, Cody Bellinger and Christian Yelich, very underwhelming seasons. Christian Yelich just wasn't what he used to be like. And I think that this is definitely his best opportunity to kind of reprove himself. I know the media kind of wrote him off a little bit, and fairly so. He didn't have the best season given what we know he can be offensively. And I think if he's able to be the way he is offensively that we're used to seeing and everyone else continues to strive, then I do see this team winning 100 games. So that's kind of why that's how I'm tying it into why I have their ceiling so high, is because I think that this is a Christian Yelich, remember who the hell I am year.
And I hope so too, just for the sake of how much I love Christian Yelich and watching him succeed. But I have a question for you guys before we get to the positioning of the Milwaukee Brewers over this upcoming season. What happens if Yelich doesn't do what we all expect him to do? What if he doesn't rebound? What if he still continues to not just plateau, but even more decline? What are we going to see from that now? Because then you're now in a little bit of a hole where Milwaukee Brewers right now are looking for another big bat. Well, if the season goes that way for Christian Yelich, you're losing what is usually a big bat. So now you're down to 2 if they don't even get the one that they want in the offseason. So what happens if something falls off for Christian Yelich? And this is not something to go against Christian Yelich. I think he has the capabilities and the mindset and all that kind of stuff to get him over that hump. But there's always that situation where a guy doesn't do it. So what do you see from, I'll start with you, Evan, and I'll work my way to Mateo. What do you see if Christian Yelich isn't providing that?
I would trade him. I would trade him because you could still get so much value for Christian Yelich. Like, I don't think a team is going to try to undersell the Milwaukee Brewers. And I don't think the Milwaukee Brewers are going to be willing to undersell on Christian Yelich based on what potential he can have. And if it does get to a point where it's just not working out and Milwaukee wants to be competitive, they have the pieces to win a World Series this year. If Christian Yelich is the Charlie horse, then they can definitely get someone to replace him. I mean, everyone's replaceable. I would say everyone on that Brewers team is replaceable except for the starting rotation in the bullpen. Besides their pitching, I think anyone else is replaceable on that team.
And if we're talking about maybe a deal striking, if this were to go down that path with Christian Yelich, there's no team that really has bargaining power, because the one team that wants him is looking for that one season or that a couple seasons for him to rebound. The other team, which is the Milwaukee Brewers, they're saying, well, this guy has the capabilities of doing it. We've seen it in the past when you're looking at the transition between the Miami Marlins and the Milwaukee Brewers.
Call me crazy. I don't know if this makes, I mean, this is just something I thought of right now, given also his power in October. What if this does get to a point? What if the Brewers? Oh wait, no. I was gonna say, if the Brewers go after whichever team signs Jock Peterson and tries to center a deal around Peterson, because he has the power and he has the nickname Jocktober for a reason. I mean, like obviously it's not going to be a 1-for-1, but if you could center a deal around Jock Peterson, I don't necessarily see that as a huge downfall from Christian Yelich.
And I mean, I know he doesn't got the MVPs to back it up if you're looking at Peterson, but you got the clutch play in October. It's maybe a different Christian Yelich you're seeing in different pinch stripes.
He's a team player. Like Jock Peterson's a team player. He doesn't care about the personal accolades. Absolutely. It's what happens with the team. I just think it could be interesting, but I don't know. I just thought of it like 20 seconds ago. So
I think the important thing to consider here is that, you're paying Yelich like $25 million for the next 7 years. And just, if you want to make a trade, how much of that salary you're going to have to eat. And I think the question you have to ask yourself if you're the Milwaukee Brewers is, this guy's going to be a free agent in 2030 and no team's going to want to pay him $25 million if he has another bad year. Is it worth it to eat, 60-70% of that salary and try to trade him? Or is it more worth it just to keep him on the roster and try to see if you can bring him back to what he was before, try to see what you have? He's got a long time left on his contract. And, personally, I don't believe that Christian Yelich is going to flop. Maybe he doesn't get back to that, the prime Christian Yelich that, we all thought we were going to get when he signed this massive deal. But I mean, his big deal is just kicking in right now. This season, he's owed $26 million and he's going to be paid that for the next 7 years. So I think you're going to have a very hard time trying to find a team who wants to, buy high on Christian Yelich. Whereas, you've committed the money to it at this point. You saw something that you believed, and it might be worth it to just make that investment in trying to bring him back to what you thought he was going to be. And so the answer might be just to stick with him, honestly.
Absolutely. And I mean, the option is I think it's the number one option for the Milwaukee Brewers on the table. They got the contract, and that's just how much the checkbook speaks. You got the money, you got him locked up for quite a while in the baseball world. So you can just, if he doesn't produce this year or even next year, you still got him for, I'm saying, 4 more years after that or 5 more years after that. So you still got some term with him. You can see what happens down the road, but I guess it's just food for thought. I think Christian Yelich is going to be the one to turn it around. I think he's got all the tools at his disposal to do so. But no, it's an interesting conversation to say the least. And I think it's something the Milwaukee Brewers in the back of their mind sort of churning a little bit, because the team's well off otherwise. And I think we're going to just touch upon it, positioning just briefly. Where do we see the Milwaukee Brewers buying, selling, or staying? I think we all kind of unanimously agree that they want to go buy that big bat, the one they're missing at first base. So I don't even know if I want to turn it to you guys and maybe transition to
it's the same
Pittsburgh
You're
Pirates.
just going to get the Matt Olson rants again.
Yeah. And speaking into existence. So I'm telling you.
I want it.
I want it too, man. I want it
first
too.
Base is what I had for positioning as well. Just need a first baseman, honestly.
Yeah. And I mean, Rowdy Tellez, I loved him in the Jays, great guy. But if he's going to be your starting first baseman, you got like World Series aspirations or deep playoff run aspirations. Rowdy should not be sticking on your team for the entire year. You're going to have to make a move, either it's before the season, during the season, and it certainly can't be after the season where everything is all said and done. But let's move our way here to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They're an interesting cat, to say the least. Their offseason grade, and I really hate to say this because, I mean, there's nothing they can do. I got to give them a D. They didn't get better. They certainly got worse. But as a Pittsburgh Pirates fan or anyone watching, it's nothing new. And this is what I think a lot of the discussion is in the CBA agreements and all that kind of stuff is going towards the Pittsburgh Pirates. I saw something about tanking, where they want to take that out of the game a little bit more. There's a lot of things around those rebuilding teams like the Pittsburgh Pirates are, the floor mats of the league, if you will. I'm going to turn over to you guys. What do you see from the Pittsburgh Pirates offseason? And I know we're going to look at a little bit into positioning as well later in this segment, but there's nothing that they can really do. They really do. They got a cheap owner, doesn't want to spend a lot of money. They're in a weird stage where they're just trying to offload anyone and anybody that they have. What do you guys give them as a grade scale? Mattel, I'll start with you and I'll work it down.
I'm right there with you at a D. I mean, they're one of the rare teams in Major League Baseball that actually admits that they're openly tanking. I mean, obviously the owner doesn't want to spend money on a team that isn't going to be, successful. And personally, I disagree with tanking in baseball because I don't really see a point. I mean, we've spoken about this in the past, whereas, you can find great players, throughout the draft. And sure, the first player might be more likely to hit, but it's still not a guarantee like it is in, football and basketball and other sports where, the players make a more immediate impact. So I don't really see a point to tanking in baseball. I don't really respect tanking in baseball, but at the same time, like their hands are tied. There's nothing they can do. You don't want to spend money on a losing team. So they get a D from me. They haven't done anything. There's nothing they can do. So that's the Pirates for you.
Yeah, it is the Pirates in one sentence. Evan, do you have the same answer that low? Is
Yeah,
it even going to
well,
be an F from you?
it was an F. It was an F. Yeah.
Had to ask the question.
And to your point, though, like there is that new thing in the CBA where they're going to veer towards what the other sports do. I know football doesn't do it, but like baseball, I'm sorry, not baseball, hockey and basketball do the draft lottery, and the MLB in the new CBA wants to include the draft lottery. I think it was agreed upon that that's one of the things, along with the universal DH. But yeah, you're not gonna like no one's gonna like what I said about the Pirates. It kind of just went like no filter, just absolutely ripped on them. But yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's really hard to put so much blame on the Pirates, like the players they have, because they've developed such great talents. I know Garrett Cole came from there. There's been a bunch of other players. I think that's
Adam Frazier. But they just trade anyone who's relevant.
Oh yeah, like, I think Reynolds. I believe the huge
Brian Reynolds.
Yep.
The batting
Where's
average
he now?
king.
Brian Reynolds Brian Reynolds is still their center fielder, I think.
Yeah, he is.
He is. He's the one that stuck around. He's the one that they didn't trade.
Oh God.
Yeah, well, maybe we're speaking this one into existence. Who knows? Pittsburgh Pirates.
Someone check on his therapy session, Bill.
Oh, but it's a weird one to go pin all on the Pittsburgh Pirates. They've had pieces that they just could not keep, but I guess we have to analyze them anyways. Guys, what do you got the record for them? I got them. This is being maybe generous. 60 wins, ceiling 65. I know.
Buddy.
It's Evan. I want to hear your thoughts first. How bad are you going to torch these bad boys? Because they got.
I have their record at 53 wins and their ceiling at 55.
Man,
it takes skill to lose 53 games. Like
I know it does. It takes skill. Yeah, it does take skill to only win 50. I'm just saying, guys, like, dude, I didn't even know who their first pitcher was. I had to like dig into the pipelines to figure out who the hell is Will Crowe. I haven't heard of this guy.
I thought it was Brubaker.
You know what? It could be, but
they're all the same.
Who knows? Like who? You know what? Who knows? They're going to be golfing by March.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, what do you got for the record? Ceiling and just the record you see them posting.
57 wins for the record, 63 for their ceiling. It's around where they finished last year. It's nothing remarkable. You're going to get more of the same out of Pittsburgh.
I can't really expand off of this one. It's I think there's not much to say about the Pittsburgh Pirates just because they don't have much. They're trying to develop a lot, and they're in just a terrible position that we're going to be seeing from them in the next couple of years. It's not getting any better for you Pirates fans out there. Team MVP, gentlemen, who do you guys got? I got Brian Reynolds. Just because I think he's the batting average king on this team. And I can assure you he's going to be the team MVP for half the season because he's probably going to be dealt by like the trade deadline or something like that. So, Mateo, I'll go to you and then I'll make my way to Evan. Who do you got for team MVP for this lonesome Pittsburgh Pirates side?
Yeah, I got a rare bright spot on this team over at third base. He's a rookie this season, but it's Ke'Bryan Hayes. Mm-hmm. I don't think he played a full season. I know he had a little bit of an injury moment there, but Ke'Bryan Hayes is a guy that, he's got the highest ceiling on this team for sure. And, it may not be next year that he realizes that ceiling, but, even half of that ceiling is good enough to be better than any player on this roster. So Ke'Bryan Hayes is my pick. I think he's an electric player. He's fun to watch. And, he's probably the only thing that, Pittsburgh fans are holding on for. So he's my team MVP.
That's the dude that overran first base on a home run against the Dodgers. Like, and then they ended up losing one.
Yeah, but okay. Acuna's done the same thing. So like,
no, I'm just,
he'll be an MVP one day.
All right.
Evan, how about you?
My team MVP, brace yourselves. This is who my team MVP is. And I quote, whoever the fuck buys tickets to watch them, that's my team MVP because they need to find a way to keep the doors open.
Oh, I just took a sip of water.
Because they need to find a way to keep that ballpark open. And I'm not even trying to be funny at this point. I don't know anyone on Pittsburgh besides Cole Tucker, really, who who I have him as my make or break here. Brian Reynolds is obviously like the consensus MVP just because he's like the only credible major league
Yes.
player on that roster. I feel so bad for him. He's probably going to be moved just for the sake of his own sanity, probably be moved. But yeah, that's my team MVP, and I hope he wins.
There's a couple silver linings for the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's not many, but there's a couple. They got some pretty decent young prospects. You mentioned at third base, Brian Hayes, I believe you said, Mateo, or was it O'Neill Cruz, one of the two. But regardless, they're two terrific talents that are going to be up and coming that you can probably roll with very well with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Ben Gamel's also another one. They got some pieces that they could build on. And I know it's not like anywhere close, but in 3-4 years, these guys could be something special. Another silver lining is that their ballpark is absolutely beautiful.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I would pay any amount of money to go watch just for the scenery. I wouldn't even go out and watch the team or the guys playing on the field just to see that skyline, the bridge, and all that
Allegheny
stuff.
River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes
it
up to
is.
the 300 levels and forgets that there's a game going on.
I
Go
would,
get
I would,
snacks and look at the river. Yeah.
I would specifically go to the nosebleeds to see it at a
He's
better
like,
view
it
of that
costs
stadium.
less to go to the nosebleeds and go on a boat tour.
Yeah.
I want to say that it says a lot about the team's talent that the only other player Evan knows on the team is their backup shortstop. Like,
I
that
only know him
is-
because of Cody Bellinger.
exactly. Just the fact that their backup shortstop is one of their most notable players is kind of concerning.
And it's only because his best friend was the MVP. Like other than that, like I haven't seen this man on TV.
I mean, it speaks true to what a lot of baseball fans are thinking right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates are in a weird spot, like I've just mentioned numerously in this segment,
Yeah.
and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. I'm going to turn it over to you guys about the team Cy Young. I think
Can we
I
not?
need to look it up just to. Jose Quintana's on the team. That's
Yes, he is.
That's
I mean,
interesting.
The fact that we're even talking about this team for more than 5 minutes is
It's a
actually
tough one.
embarrassing.
It
Yeah.
is.
Of
It
course, I
is.
get a
Dude,
I-
their te-
I get assigned with the American League Central with all the weird, strange little
Yeah.
teams, and I get the NL Central. It's just I got to work my
Okay.
way, man. It's a tough one.
You picked the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, I did. I dug myself my own grave. I'll give you that. But I don't know. Do you guys want to go to
Who
Team
is there,
Cy
Cy
Young?
Young? No, can we not? Can we go to the next team, please? I can't like.
I'll mention Mitch Keller. I mean, just to
No,
give the
don't
Pirates
even.
a little bit of respect. He had a pretty good, like a respectable. No, I would say it was a good 2020 season, 2.9 ERA. You know, I mean, he absolutely had a horrible 2021 in a larger sample size, 6.17. But I mean, if anybody can maybe get back to that form, I know it's a small sample size, but maybe it's Mitch Keller. Shot in the
Could
dark.
be. Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of shots in the dark with the Pirates.
Evan is very disappointed in that one.
It's
I just wanna
okay.
move on.
It's okay. I will be
Can't,
moving on
like,
just now.
Who the fuck is Mitch Keller?
Well, I didn't know before the start of this show. That is for sure. But oh god, throat is.
Who's Will Crow?
I don't know these guys at all, but what I do know is that the make or break for this team is going to have to be the youngsters. They want to get any traction. Everyone that they're going to be picking up this year, I know there's not going to be a lot of them, is going to be through their young guns. And the positioning, it's pretty relevant selling just because that's the way Pittsburgh is. It's the way it is down in the Steel City. But that's about it for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I'm glad we kind of got this but we can focus on some other teams that are a little bit better off than the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Thank you.
Let's get to the team that I'm donning their jersey. I got a big soft spot for the Chicago Cubs. We'll start off with them. Their offseason grade, I gave them a C just because they still got to sell off some old parts. I was looking at the lineup, the projected one for opening day. As of right now, there's so much that can still change, obviously, but Hayward is still there. I think he should maybe be moved and get maybe some young pieces. They're definitely in a rebuilding stage. I don't think there's any way of working around it. I don't think they have anything left in the tank to contend, and they certainly don't got the pieces to do so. But I want to hear your thoughts. What were the thoughts on the offseason? What did you grade them on a grade scale? And where do you see this? What scale do you see the Chicago Cubs? Are they in the rebuilding? I personally think they are. Are they something that they're still in the middle and they could maybe contend? I'll start with you, Mateo.
Yeah, I gave him a B minus. I think they're definitely a rebuilding team, but I don't hate the Stroman ad as much as a lot of people do. I think there's obviously concerns about the attitude, and we've had this discussion a little bit when we talked about our free agents. But you bring in a guy like Stroman, the goal isn't necessarily to win games with this team. The goal is to bring in a guy who the fans are going to come to the stadium and watch, and who is going to get people to turn on the TV and watch every 5 days to watch Marcus Stroman, who's a great pitcher in his own respect, start. He's a personality. He brings a lot of life to the games. He's going to bring a little bit of energy to this team that definitely needs it. But he's also a guy that you sign him to a little bit of, it's not a 1-year deal. It's a little bit of a longer term deal. You sign him to that deal, and he plays well for maybe the first season. He plays well for maybe the second season. And then he's a guy that you can maybe trade for some prospects and opens a few doors like that. So I don't see Stroman as a long-term piece of this team, but he's a guy that, brings you the energy that you need right now, brings you that ticket sale, is the guy that's going to sell the jerseys, and is somebody that you might be able to flip for something of value later on in his, life cycle of his contract. So I give him a B-. I think they've done decent with what they've been able to do.
I'm going to ask you this other question. What do you expect to see from the Chicago Cubs once the offseason resumes? Are they going to maybe go out and buy other guys like Stroman in that sort of range of players and then try to flip those guys for other younger capital, draft capital maybe? Or is it just going to be sticking with this team that they have now and then over the course of the season trying to flip those guys?
I don't think you'll see too much of it, to be honest. I think the obvious concern is when you start to add players like that, you take playing time away from your younger guys like Madrigal and Horner and Bodie. And, you've got a lot of infielders, Patrick Wisdom, guys that, need to play to develop. So if you talk about you're starting to add bats and stuff, it's not really a sustainable thing, because then you take at bats away from young players who need them to develop. But as far as pitching goes, I have no problem with adding a veteran pitcher in a situation like that. Maybe, he has a few successful years and then you can flip him and, everybody's happy.
And you look at the starting pitching as well that they have. They got Wade Miley, Alec Mills, who did decently last year as well, Kyle Hendricks, to name a few. But Evan, I'll turn over to you. Where do you put the grade scale on the Chicago Cubs team? The offseason's been something that we haven't seen too much of it, but they bring in the big piece that has been Marcus Stroman. We've talked about if you're happy or not with that move, but do you still see anything coming out of Chicago once the offseason resumes?
No, and I hope they trade Wilson Contreras, because I think they can get a lot of value for him. I mentioned during the free agent show that a team like maybe San Francisco could be on him. Just have like two reliable catchers, because obviously your catcher isn't going to play 108 or 62 games. So, but I gave them a D+, and I'll say why. Because I think Stroman, as much as he brings to a team, I think it was actually the worst thing that they could have done, because you hear from every team that attitude is a huge concern with him. And now the fact that you gave him all this money, what is he making, like 21 million a year? Like, dude, that's just like feeding ego into an egotistical guy. Like, I don't think it was the right move at all. I have a feeling they're going to be in the media a lot, and not for the right reasons. And I think the main focal point will be Marcus Stroman. I mean, we saw issues in New York where throwing his glove, cursing at players. Like, when you want to develop these young guys and you want to bring in a veteran, I think the worst possible person you could bring is Marcus Stroman.
It's interesting. It's an interesting topic to say the least. No, it's interesting because I see it on the other side of things where it's not like you have a young roster that's going to be contending in maybe 2-3 years. I can see the timeline maybe extending to maybe 4. So Marcus Stroman might not even be on this team. I don't know how much of the voice he's going to mean towards these young guys. I think this is going to be who cares what's going on in the locker room. You guys are all going to be sulking because you're not going to get anything really done. It's going to be just an ugly season that you're preparing, and heading in, it's going to be something it's going to be on your mind. Mateo, I want to hear your thoughts on that as well, just before I transition to everything else about the Cubs.
I mean, at the same time, I think he kind of knows what he's getting into as well. Like, nobody's expecting the Chicago Cubs to be a great team this year. I don't know if maybe, the front office promised him great stuff in the next few years of his contract, but, he knew what he was getting into this year. He knows that the Cubs aren't going to be a really good team, and he knows that, he's going to be, struggling to get a little bit of run support on that mound. And obviously that's going to frustrate him. But at the same token, Stroman has always been a fan favorite, no matter where he goes. I mean, you love him when he plays for your team. You hate him when he doesn't, kind of thing. You like the energy he kind of brings. And, there's a bunch of other stuff that he's doing too. Like, he's starting a podcast with Clint Frazier or something like that. So all this stuff is going to bring energy. It's going to bring attention to the Chicago Cubs in a stretch where they're not expecting to be really good. And so they're not going to earn that attention on the field. They've got to earn it some other way to get fans to keep coming to the games, to keep those revenues up, and hopefully build a competitive team in the next few years.
And you could also look at it this way as well, in the mindset of things in the clubhouse and all that. If Marcus Stroman does manage to put up not just solid numbers on the year, because that's going to be pretty hard with the way the Cubs are formed and the structure of their team, but if he's putting up maybe a solid way of approaching things, maybe a new light that we've seen in past, where, Evan, you mentioned it, not a good look for a baseball player by any means, throwing the glove, all that kind of stuff that comes with it, being in the headlines for the wrong reasons. If you can be in the headlines for the good reasons, I think that's good just for a personal standpoint, where maybe you can see the value of him for the Cubs. This comes back to the Cubs. The value kind of goes up a little bit down the road, and you want to flip him for assets. something to think about because Marcus Stroman was the biggest acquisition that they had this offseason. It's pretty much the big thing that we're going to have to talk about. What I want to talk about right now is where do you see them at wins? I know we've been saying about this team's going to be in the rebuilding stage. We're not going to see too much coming out of Chicago. But what do you guys see from a record standpoint? Personally, I got 70 wins, ceiling 75. And I'm not very good with wins and projecting these teams. And you guys have seen very literally how my win column have gone. But what do you guys make of their wins? How many times are we going to see this team come out on top of another team this regular season? Evan, I'll go to you, and then I'll work my way to Mateo. What do you got?
Yeah, I have them at 73 wins with the ceiling of 77. So I'm like around the ballpark that you're at. Like they still have the pitching. I just don't think Marcus Stroman was like the best person to bring in. But then again, like you're gonna win. If there's 162 games in the season, I still don't have them as above 500, but I mean you're still gonna win games.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got him at 65, probably a ceiling of 71. I mean, Stroman's going to buy you a few wins here and there, but I mean, overall, there's it's a lot of what are you going to get from the young guys? Especially those infielders that I mentioned before. But I don't see this team having too high of a ceiling. I think they're definitely a few years away. I think 4 is a fair estimate, like you said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Stroman's only going to be pitching 2, maybe
Yeah.
3 max times, and 3's being generous, max times a week. So if he's going to be your lonesome Grace off the bump, it's going to be a pretty low season for the Chicago Cubs. And I don't see them adding anything anytime soon, but anything but selling. And I think Contreras is going to be tying in quite nicely to my next one. I got team MVP Wilson Contreras just because I think he's the guy who can bring the most value for your team on the offensive side. On the defensive side, you know what you're getting every single year out of Wilson Contreras. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this guy before. And Evan, I know you hinted to him as well. You mentioned maybe someone you could sell off. I was always under the impression that you wanted to keep this guy and build around him. But when you say it like that, Evan, it really does change my mind a little bit that you can really flip this guy and give maybe a younger catcher the chance to maybe up and come with this team. Mateo, I know I already got your thoughts, Evan. I want to turn to Mateo because I want to hear your thoughts on Wilson Contreras. Is this someone that you see them building around, or is it a guy where you could see them flipping him for assets as soon as the midseason?
I mean, he's a 29-year-old catcher, right? They don't generally have the longest careers. So, he's a very talented player in his own right. He's definitely one of the best catchers in Major League Baseball, but will he be in 4 years when you're ready to compete? I think is the big question. Wilson Contreras is a guy that, like I said, one of the best catchers in baseball. I think defensively and offensively, he brings a lot to the table, especially at a position where you don't see a lot of guys that do that, even on one side of the ball. And this guy does it on both. I think he's a guy that I'd like, and I think Cubs fans would like to sort of hold on to. I mean, they've gutted the rest of the team, and as much as it makes sense to get rid of a guy like Wilson Contreras, I think it might be worth waiting until a team is desperately needing a catcher and comes knocking on your door. I wouldn't go and advertise, "Hey, I've got Wilson Contreras and I want to trade him," because you might not get as much value for that. Whereas if you wait for a trade deadline and the Yankees really need a catcher, and let's say, I don't know, something happens and the Braves really need a catcher, and you're now in a position where you have this leverage of, hey, I have one of the best catchers in baseball, and I might be able to get a lot more for him now that I have actual needed demand for a catcher. So I think it's about waiting for the right situation and waiting for the right team to come to you to trade Wilson Contreras.
Well, that's why I did mention the Giants, because losing Buster Posey, I think right now the Cubs would have the utmost leverage on San Francisco. But yeah, I was never thinking of the Cubs trading Contreras before the season started. I thought it was kind of just like a wait and see what happens. And yes, if an injury does pop up, then that leverage just increases immensely.
And I think it's also going to I think we're all agreeing on this, that he's going to probably go to a contending team if he does get dealt. It's going to be maybe a situation where it's not just the team needs a catcher, the team wants a catcher to put them over the top. We saw this with the Dodgers last year when they went to go get Scherzer and Turner respectively and gave up a big giant haul in return for that. So you can maybe see a team like you mentioned, Mateo, the New York Yankees, who have Gary Sanchez, who is known for his defensive blunders. But if they want to maybe bolster their 2 catching positions, go out and get Contreras, and they're going to give the capital, to say the least. But no, interesting storyline with Wilson Contreras. Again, I see him as the MVP, depending on how many games he's going to play this season, just because he's probably the head and shoulders guy above the rest of this pack. I'll turn over to you guys. Who do you see as the MVP for the Chicago Cubs team? There's not too much, a lot of young guys. I would love to see Nick Madrigal, just because he's my boy. If you did not know, I followed him in college. I'm a big Oregon State University fan. They have a terrific baseball program down West Coast. And I've been following him in Chicago and all that. He's a terrific contact hitter, top of the order. And I guess they're just, what I'm seeing right now, they're putting him lower of the order, which I find a little bit weird. But no, I like to see something out of him. I'm not saying he's going to be a team MVP, but it'd be quite nice to see a guy that I've been following forever get the recognition that he deserves. Evan, who do you got for the team MVP for the Cubs team?
I have Patrick Wisdom as the team MVP. I think he's really the only, one of the very few, if not one of the few, shining offensive lights in this rotation. Not rotation, I'm sorry, in this lineup. I mean, Wilson Contreras provides you power from a catching position, which is now becoming more of a commodity rather than what it used to be, like a rarity. But no, yeah, Patrick Wisdom had a great year last year. I don't see that declining this year.
Yeah, what about you?
Yeah, you're gonna like my answer a lot because I have Nick Madrigal.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Another guy who I've been following pretty closely as well, obviously not to his college days, but you know, I've seen him a little bit in the minor leagues. And the thing that stands out to me is he's one of those guys, reminds me a little bit of David Fletcher, where he can put the bat on the ball no matter where it is. And it's something he's always been able to do. And you know, even though we've only seen small sample size, I don't think we've ever seen him play more than like 55 games in a season. With on the other side of Chicago, obviously. But he's a guy that, you know, that's a transferable skill that works at all levels. I mean, the guy can hit a fastball, the guy can hit any pitch you throw at him. He's got great plate coverage and he doesn't strike out. And that's a recipe for success. I mean, he's never going to be a home run hitter. And I think David Fletcher might be the mold that he sort of fits into, but I think he's got the potential to be David Fletcher plus. I think he's got the potential to be, you know, a guy like, you know, that's able to put the bat on the ball and is consistently able to make contact and get on base and hit the ball hard. But I think he's also going to be able to do that with extra base power. And I think he's going to be a guy that hits a lot of doubles and, you know, he gets his way around the bases too. So, you know, he's going to have a high on base percentage, high slugging percentage. He's going to be a very valuable player, even if the home run numbers aren't necessarily there. I'm very high on Nick Madrigal and I'm hoping for his health this year so we can see a full season out of him.
Absolutely. And I think that's the one thing, the big question mark heading into the season. And as it plays out, is Nick Madrigal going to stay healthy? As I followed him for quite some time, it's always been injuries plaguing him, a couple knee injuries here and there. And as a second baseman or in a middle infield in general, you're going to need that strong base, regardless if you're at bat or in the middle infield. So hoping to see good things from him. I would love to see it because just a huge fan of him. I'm going to make my way to the team Cy Young. And I think we touched upon it just pretty big. We talked a lot about the starting rotation within the Chicago Cubs organization. I got Marcus Stroman having a bounce. I wouldn't necessarily say a bounce back season, but maybe a bounce back season for many other reasons, both on the mentally side and the performance side of things. Who do you guys got as a team Cy Young? And I know we got a couple guys that can pick from, including Kyle Hendricks, Wade Miley. I'm seeing the projected one is Adbert Ozola or something like that. Azale. Yeah. And of course, Alec Mills as well. So there's not a terrible list to choose from when you're looking at a rebuilding team, but who do you guys have? Mateo, I'll go with you.
Yeah, I've got Stroman as well. I mean, the obvious thing here is, you know, beyond what's he going to be acting like in the clubhouse and what's he going to do for this team. I think the obvious thing here is how focused can Marcus Stroman stay on a losing team? Which obviously we've seen, you know, when the Jays started to slip, Stroman's focus started to slip and he started thinking about things that weren't baseball related. He started thinking about his contract. He started thinking about all this other stuff. So now that Stroman has, you know, a contract locked in, he has a little bit of financial security. How is he going to react to being on a losing baseball team? We know, you know, I'm sure he knows what he signed up for, but I think it's all about the production you're going to get from Stroman is, you know, how dedicated is he going to be to baseball and how much is he going to be thinking of other things and going on Twitter and, you know, roasting the front office. Right. Yeah. So yeah, you want his full energy, you want his full commitment, and then you'll get a good season out of Marcus Stroman.
And I think that's something that Cubs fans might value even more than what he's going to be doing on the field, because that means just as much, if not more, in the baseball standpoint, just the world of sports. Evan, who do you got for the Cy Young? Are you going to stick around the unanimous Marcus Stroman, or are you going to take a bit of a different path?
No, I'll go Kyle Hendricks just because I don't like Marcus Stroman at all. And
you've made it clear. I'll give you that.
I think we can infer that. Yeah.
I think I have made it clear. Like, although Kyle Hendricks didn't have a great ERA last year, 4.77, the whip wasn't absolutely terrible, like 1.35, and he did win 14 games. So, you know, if he can just continue to have that, lower the ERA to maybe around 3, I think that's very manageable, and that's what's going to make him the Cy Young for the Cubs.
Awesome.
And have I made it clear that I don't like Stroman?
Just a little bit.
A little bit. It's getting pretty prevalent within the store.
Just let me know. I'll make sure.
That's okay. If we need some more Marcus Stroman hate, we absolutely know who to call.
who to call.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah.
Make or break for the Chicago Cubs. I got Ian Happ. I just want to see a little bit more of a rebound season from him. He slashed 226 last year. He's known for bringing the switch hitting, a little bit of power, but a lot more average and extra base hits. He didn't get too much of that last season. Obviously, different circumstances around the Chicago Cubs team, but it doesn't look like it's getting any better with the lineup they're about to throw up for opening day. Dale, who do you have for the make or break player for the Chicago Cubs?
I got a guy who I'm expecting to play right across the diamond from Nick Madrigal, actually, Nico Horner, who is a really great young middle infielder for the Chicago Cubs. 24 years old. I mean, we've seen a lot of his success come last year. I mean, again, only 44 games, a really small sample size. You've seen it a lot with a lot of these Cubs. You know, once the players got traded and spots opened up, they started to, you know, move up in the depth chart. And Nico Horner is a guy who's kind of, you know, slated behind David Bodie right now. I don't see that happening on opening day. I think Nico Horner's got a little bit of a higher ceiling, and you're going to want to see what you get from him. But a guy who was, you know, 751 OPS last year, he was on base for 382. Again, a guy who's not going to hit a lot of power numbers, even doubles especially. He's really not going to get there, but he's a guy who gets on base, and that's a really valuable thing for a young player who has that, you know, plate discipline and that maturity, and that goes a long way to, you know, maybe he's got a good swing, and so maybe that translates to doubles in the future, because right now he's putting the bat on the ball and he's taking his walks and he's getting on base, and that's what I look for in a young player, and I see that in Nico Horner, and I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
I mean, the Cubs got a lot of young players. They got a lot of guys who can put the bat in the ball. That's pretty much this common theme within this Cubs lineup, which turns the clocks back to the old school baseball days where you weren't seeing all those big boppers and all that a lot of teams, as they're up and coming, are trying to trend towards. Now you're seeing a lot of guys who, and I can't complain. I'm a contact hitter myself. I love to see it. And I can see some stolen bases from a bunch of these guys. Oh, that is borderline the best thing I could see from a young and upcoming baseball team. But what do you see from a make or break standpoint, Evan? Is it going to be an Ian Happ that I went to, or are you going to go maybe an even younger model?
I'm going to go different. I'm going a different route here. I'm going Clint Frazier. You know, signed a 1-year deal with the Chicago Cubs, was on the New York Yankees. Just, it seemed like he couldn't really handle the bright lights. He was playing in that left field spot for them, and just it didn't work out the way that they had hoped. And they ended up designating him for assignment. He was picked up by the Chicago Cubs, and I just think, given the opportunity that is available for him, I think he should really take full advantage of it and kind of revitalize his name and revitalize his career and what people think of him, because right now it seems like it's just a bench player that can provide offense here and there, but not really enough to make him a full-time starter. And I think with the Cubs, given that they're in a rebuild stage, this is the perfect opportunity for him to shine.
Absolutely. And I mean, I want to make our way here before we get into the other teams about the positioning of the Chicago Cubs. Are they going to start buying some pieces, selling some pieces? Or are they going to stay the same? I can't see them staying anywhere near what they have now, because they're not going to be winning anytime soon. I can't see them going out and buying a lot because they're not going to be in that spot to contend. I see them selling a little bit of pieces, and maybe, like we mentioned off the top of the Chicago Cubs segment here, buying some guys like Marcus Stroman, or guys who have value that you could probably flip later down the road for some decent capital and draft prospects. Mateo, I'll go with you. Where do you see this team? I see them start buying pieces right now in the sense of young sort of capital. But where are you at?
It's a sell situation. I think they'll be a little more active at the deadline, and hopefully be selling some of these older players that they've you know, retained and are maybe signing. I think one thing that we've seen a lot, especially with the Blue Jays, and you know what Ross Atkins does, is he goes in and he gets veteran relievers and he adds them to the pen. And you know, generally they're not at super high price tags, but they're guys who he believes he can, you know, bring back into form, and with a little bit of regular appearances, maybe in some high leverage situations, they can come back into, you know, what you've expected to see from them in a few past years. And those deals are relatively cheap, and you'll get a decent prospect when you move him at the deadline. And so that's sort of what I see with the Cubs. You buy, like you said, on these veteran players that aren't going to take playing time away from some of your younger players. So that's, you know, arms. It's guys like Marcus Stroman. It's guys like, you know, relievers that you're adding in the bullpen. And then maybe you flip a lot of them at a deadline with Wilson Contreras. Again, the need has to be there. But yeah, you'll see some good results at the deadline from the Cubs, I think, this year. Yeah.
And I think that's where you're going to see the biggest ones of them all, not heading into the season, not before the season starts, but exactly at the trade deadline, where you're going to see a bunch of these veteran guys, and you're going to see where this Chicago Cubs team is at. How much of in a hole are they at that certain time? And I think a guy like Wilson Contreras might be the best opportunity for them to get some decent pieces back the other way. Evan, what do you see from this team? Are they a buy, sell, or stay?
I have them. I mean, like, I put them in the rebuilding position, so it's definitely. I think they should sell Wilson Contreras when the time is right, because he is 29 years old. And to your guys' point, ideally, by the time that the Cubs want to contend, Wilson Contreras will most likely not be the focal point. And it's also, I don't think it has to do with his age. I also think it's very hard to build around a catcher. Like you don't see elite teams building, or they more so build around obviously pitching and outfield. It seems like, and then you'll fill in the infield bats and all that. But no, I definitely see them selling moderately. Just you don't need to sell the house, but I think the last piece you need to sell is Wilson Contreras, because if you're going to rebuild, just rebuild. Like, don't allow a 29-year-old who can strive in a better situation. Like, there's no point of prisoning him, and he's done enough for the Cubs that I believe he has earned the respect to be moved to a more appropriate situation. So yeah.
Another one here, Jason Hayward. He's an older player. However, I'm looking right now. He has an 8-year contract, $184 million. That is a monster one. And it's not like he's getting value from his playing days as well. It's just going to be.
He has zero value.
Yeah, retiring.
You better buy that house.
Yeah, I think he's already bought the house. He's been there for quite some time.
Yeah, well, don't lease it. You stay in, big boy.
You are staying. I think that's not I mean, for the Cubs, it's a tough situation, but for Jason Hayward, you're getting paid and you're not going to be on the best of teams for quite a while.
At the same time, you value that veteran presence in the locker room, right? I mean, obviously they've got, I think, the youngest manager in the league with David Ross too. Yeah. So you're going to need a voice in there as well.
He already has the gray hair, which is the funny part.
We know what Jason Hayward did, how much he contributed to that World Series team, and the whole story of the rain delay and the players only meeting in the locker room, and how vocal and active Jason Hayward was there. And a lot of the players credit him with, the drive that allowed them to win the game. So Jason Hayward's a guy that, he's at the very least is a valuable voice in the locker room, and he'll be there to help out, David Ross in a few tough years that these players are going to need some guidance for.
And I mean, funny to think that him and David Ross were on the exact same World Series winning team. I believe, was Wilson Contreras there or not?
Yeah, Wilson Contreras was there.
Okay, so I'm just double checking.
Those guys like
Rizzo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But they're slowly selling off the pieces that were there, and I think that's just the nature of the beast. But let's move our way here to St. Louis Cardinals. They have a little bit of World Series aspirations of their own, depending on which way you fall with this team. They had a pretty, I would say, successful offseason. They pick up Steven Matz, the reliable third starter, to even out the rotation. And if he could play in the shadow of what he was last season, the St. Louis Blues. Wow, there's the hockey. There's the hockey.
There you go.
Sorry about that. The St. Louis Cardinals will have something cooking on the starting rotation side, and they got Jack Flaherty. He is not Jack Flaherty, Adam Wainwright as well. He's chasing 200 wins. If you guys did not know, trying to join. I think he needs 14 more, so very doable.
That's very hard.
He will be joining if he does conquer that feat. Bob Gibson, one of the also St. Louis Cardinals greats. So definitely going to be able to join elite company if the season goes as planned. He stays healthy. Of course, that's what you want to see out of a major veteran presence like Adam Wainwright. But what do you guys see from the offseason acquisitions? What do you guys give him as a grade? Steven Matz was the headliner one, but there was a couple other minor ones as well. What do you see from it, Evan? Where are you going to put them?
Yeah, I gave them a C still because, Steven Matz is a great third to have, especially, come playoff time if they do make it there. They didn't do anything to address their bullpen yet. And I think that was the major concern. Alex Reyes, he's the reason why they lost the wild card game, threw a meatball down the middle to Chris Taylor, and Taylor said, see ya. But there were issues with him the entire year with blowing saves and blowing opportunities for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think that's like the reason why I gave him the seats, because I think they need to get rid of him. And I don't think Alex Reyes should be on the St. Louis Cardinals on their opening day roster. But other than that, I don't really view this team as a contender, because I thought that it was kind of just like a Cinderella story where they got hot, because we got to remember, like, before this 15-game winning streak, they had like 70 wins and were like 9 games out of the second wild card spot. So like they weren't in a great position, even with the way this team is currently constructed. So they definitely need to get another arm in the bullpen. I think like that's definitely a huge need that killed them in many games last year.
And I mean, they could be one of the front runners this offseason once it resumes for one of those big closers, those big fish that a lot of teams, including my very favorite team, the Philadelphia Phillies, might want to haul in as well. But it's weird to say, because we've always known and accustomed to seeing the St. Louis Cardinals as a streaky team. They always go on those runs and those cold spells. They always come out of the gates quite slow and then start picking it up as the weather starts getting warmer. And even to attest to their lineup, it is not a bad lineup whatsoever. 1-9, this team can
No,
roll
it's
and they
not
can
bad.
beat you. But
They were
they're
like
in a
the
weird
second best
situation.
defensive team.
Yeah, they are
Or, like,
always
one of
yeah, they're always
Won
a
like
strong.
5 Gold Gloves or something like that
Yeah.
this year.
yeah, that was insane.
Oh yeah, they know how to defend the team well. They could defend the house. But Mateo, what do you got for their offseason? I know they bring in Mats. That was the big name. Do you still see him as high as me giving them the B, or are you going to go a little bit on the lower spectrum just because they didn't address maybe the more prevalent needs?
I think this is a team. I have them at a B. I think they're one piece away. I think whether it's got to be pitching, whether it's bullpen or starting pitching. I don't really know or care which one it is, but they're one piece away. I think Alex Reyes is a little bit slept on. I mean, from his postseason performance, obviously he's, a lot of people, their stock on Alex Reyes definitely dropped, but I think him and Gallegos at the back end of your pen are definitely, respectable options back there. There was the whole Carlos Martinez experiment, trying him as a closer, and, that had varying success through the year. So obviously shoring that back end of your bullpen up with, rotational bullpen pieces. But you still need to go get another pitcher. Hopefully Mats can give you what he's, expected to give you based on what he did with the Jays last year. But I really believe that you're looking at the best team in the NL Central here. And that might be a little surprising to people, but I think the Cardinals are going to take this division this year. And, barring a major move from Milwaukee, I think this is the Cardinals' year for the NL Central.
Very bold take. I love it. I will always take a bold take than any other take. But no, we talked about it off the top of the show, how wide open this NL Central division is. And it's not a knock on any of the other teams. There's a lot of teams here that are in that weird stage of rebuilding, nowhere even close, and even stuck in the middle. This St. Louis Cardinals team, in respect to in comparison to the Milwaukee Brewers team, they're pretty darn close. And like you mentioned, Mateo, both teams need that one piece to get them over the hump. It's just a matter of which one grabs it first and which one runs away with it. And I want to turn it over to which team you think is going to run away with it more. And more specifically, what's the record the St. Louis Cardinals are going to put up? I got them at 80 wins, the ceiling at 88. This is a good ball team that is capable of making some noise if the players so help them do so. Evan, who do you got? What do you got for the record? And,
I'm in a similar situation as you. 83 wins with a ceiling of 86. I'm not as high on the Cardinals. It could be postseason bias. I try to stay away from that, but I wasn't really confident in this team last year, and the fact that the Brewers stayed the same just doesn't give me confidence that the Cardinals can really run away with this division or come close to winning it. You want to say a bold take? I think the Brewers win the division by 5 games or more. I think it's that much of a runaway, just because I understand the whole Alex Reyes thing, but there were a handful of opportunities that he blew, and not only did he blow it, but he gave up.
But at the same time, he was an all-star last year, right? So
and Cody Bellinger was an MVP.
Yeah, that's fair.
So what's your point? Christian Yelich was an MVP. I'm saying he got a lot of hate, and I don't think for the betterment of his career, it's good for him to start again on the Cardinals, because as soon as one thing goes wrong, it's over. Mentally, it could possibly be over.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to have a very easy time proving you and a lot of other people wrong. I'm very high on the Cardinals this year, and I have them at 93 wins with a ceiling of potentially 96. And I don't know if you remember my prediction with Milwaukee. I'm not expecting this to be a very, high win division, but I have them winning the division by about 2 games. It's going to be tight. It's definitely not going to be a runaway, but I definitely think that the Cardinals and their offensive core, if they can just add another pitcher, are the best team in the NL Central for sure.
And it could be any pitcher. Go to the bullpen, because I am still with you, Mateo. I believe Alex Reyes still has the gas in the tank.
Yeah,
he was an all-star. I am not ready to give up either. You can have. We talk about Josh Hader, how much he is struggled in the postseason, and then we place him top 3 in our rankings, not even top 5. So I don't really have too much problems with Reyes there, but maybe if you got another bullpen piece, that could suit quite nice. And if you can even out that pitching rotation even more to combat what a solid rotation the Milwaukee Brewers have, you definitely have the lineup to back it up. So it is not within far reach that you can be chasing the the lead of this division. But I want to move over to the team MVP here, and I'm going to go with the maybe more obvious answer, Nolan Arenado. This guy ages like fine wine. The defense just continuously gets better. The offense is always there. He's a terrific talent on third base, one of the generational third base talents we've seen over this last decade or so. So what do you guys see of the MVP? I'm sure you're going to make your way against Nolan Arenado just because there's so many other names that you can go with, because just and a testament to how good this St. Louis Cardinals team is. Evan, I'll go with you, and then I'll make my way to Mateo.
Yeah, I'll go with Paul Goldschmidt. You want to talk about guys that age like fine wine? Paul Goldschmidt does that as well. Probably a top 5 first baseman in the MLB, just defensively and offensively. I mean, he can do it all, and I think durability is also a huge thing. I mean, I rarely see him injured. I could be mistaken, but there are more times than not that I see him in the lineup. But given his age and given his talent, he's my MVP.
Taylor, what about you?
Yeah, I got to show a little love to the Canadian Tyler O'Neill. I mean, he's a guy who had a real breakout season last year.
Unit.
He is huge.
Biceps,
he's
That dude's a
jacked.
fucking unit.
But yeah, the BC boy had a huge year last year. 5th in slugging percentage, 7th in the NL in home runs. He's a guy that, you know, obviously didn't necessarily go slept on, but was a huge part of that Cardinals run and really propelled them into the postseason, and was a guy that, you know, can take credit for a lot of the Cardinals' success last year. Definitely expecting him to be, you know, the core of this offense here, and definitely expecting him to be a key piece of this team if they want to win 90 plus games again this year.
Dude, when he struck out against Jansen, he got so upset. I thought that bat was just gonna shatter.
He's
like
scary.
Just on impact. Just like he looks so upset. He slammed it. I thought it was gonna go into pieces.
And he's only like, not to call it short, but he's only 5'11", right? Like he looks like a huge guy, and he's not even like there are plenty of taller players than him. Like, yeah.
The NL Central has its fair share of like deceptive strong men. Like you're looking at O'Neill for one. I don't know if you've seen Vogelbach. That guy's biceps are off the charts.
Like meatball. He's
I was gonna say the more so to a meatball, but he's big, and then the biceps, man, those things can strangle just about anyone.
I wouldn't want to pitch to any of them.
That is a good.
I wouldn't want to strike any of them out. I'd be so afraid of what happens.
You're gonna charge them out, yeah.
They show up at my house the next morning. Oh, you mother.
Yeah, you're feeling big. You go to the NL
Scary
Central.
sight.
That is for sure. I want to ask you guys this question: who's the team Cy Young for the St. Louis Cardinals? I got Jack Flaherty, very high on him, but like there's a lot of long list of starting pitchers, and you can even use this excuse, Mateo, someone we have not seen yet added to the St. Louis Cardinals. I'll start with you.
Oh man, I'd love to go that route, but I got a soft spot for Waino. I want to see him get those 14 wins. I want to see him, you know, join that 200 win club. I mean, Wainwright is a guy who definitely deserves it. He's a guy that, you know, for the last 2 years, I've been waiting for him to fall off and sort of regress into the old age. Not that I'm rooting against him, but you know, it's almost something that you expect with older pitchers, right? And though he may not get to 14 wins this year, I want him to go out on a good season. I think he will go out on a good season. His last season, obviously retiring at the same time as Molina. They've worked with each other for their entire lives. Nobody knows each other better than that battery tandem right there. So I think Adam Wainwright is going to have a nice ending to his career. He's going to have a very solid season for this team, and he's going to ride off into the sunset.
And baseball is not really known for their duos in comparison to other kind of sports, but this duo is very prevalent with
dynamic.
The MLB, historic one to say the least. Evan, who do you got for the Cy Young for the St. Louis Cardinals?
I'm going to go local boy Jack Flaherty, Harvard Westlake, proud. I'm going to go him. You know, he's incredible. And I mean, definitely the reason why the Cardinals win games. I think like just the way he pitches, and I don't know, it's like him and Max Fried, they both went to the same high school and they look so mean when they pitch. I don't know what the hell happened. Like, you know, I don't know, man, but you know, Jack Flaherty is consistent. He's reliable. He's durable. I mean, he checks off every box in what you need in a starting pitcher.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to move over to the make or break situation for the St. Louis Cardinals. I got Edmundo Sosa. Ooh. And the reason why I say this is because if he's your guy, if he's your guy, he is your guy. You have to commit to him. And I think the St. Louis Cardinals have done a good job of committing to him over this past year. I think unless they're going to go out and add another guy, he is going to be their starting shortstop every day. Mateo, I know we talked about him briefly over the last couple of weeks. His defense has always been a little bit of an issue. Yeah. So that's something he has to work on. If he can get that done, and the defense is what a lot of managers nowadays consider something that comes second rather than first, something that was totally different than when you want to rewind the clock as far as you want to go. Defense was always valued. Now it's a little less because you can teach defense, you can learn it rather than hitting is more of a natural kind of thing. So if he can learn the defense and adjust to the curve there, he's could be one of your big talents that's coming out of St. Louis. He could make or break your team for sure. And this lineup has a lot of guys that can make or break your team. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Which player, and I think I went a little bit off the board here, something I rarely do on this show, but I went with Edmundo Sosa. Mateo, who do you have? And then Evan, you'll finish it off.
Yeah. One thing you guys will come to learn about me is I have a serious Achilles heel for Tommy Edman. I have taken him every year in fantasy since he's been in the league, and that rewarded me very heavily in 2019, and it punished me pretty bad in 2019 and 2021. So I'm looking for Tommy Edman to come out and, you know, in a full season. Obviously 2019 was a bit of a shortened season for him, and 2020 was the shortened season. And, you know, I'm looking for him to have another good year like he did in 2019 with the Cardinals again this year. And obviously, you know, he's a great defender. We know what he does on that side of the ball, but I want him to the point where he's getting on base again, because the power numbers are still there. The slugging percentage is still there. It's the walks and it's getting on base. And, you know, that's typical of a young player. You see that very often. And I think Edman has I like those guys that put the bat on the ball and get on base and run the bases. That's my thing. And Tommy Edman is kind of the epitome of that. He's a utility player, got a soft spot in my heart, and I'm expecting great things from him next year.
And he's one of the few players in the league that can pick him up and throw him down pretty well. Yep. He can run the bases like no other. But if you get on base and you're doing that kind of job, and you're the leadoff hitter for the St. Louis Cardinals team, which I'm sure he's going to be just because of the speed combined with the contact, St. Louis Cardinals have something cooking on their hands, and you want to see that bounce back year from Tommy Edman. Evan, who do you got for the make or break player for the St. Louis Cardinals? And then we'll make our way to the positioning of this team.
Yeah, wait, I just want to make sure. Did I say my predictions that the Brewers would win by at least 5 games or more than 5 games? I'm trying to remember.
At least.
You said
okay. I said at least. I'll keep it at that. Okay, my make or break for the Cardinals is Miles Mikolas. I think he's like the 4th pitcher in the rotation or something like. I don't know. I don't watch the Cardinals because it's just so hard watching a full baseball game when it's not the playoffs, but or if you're not physically there. But the one game that I did see with the Cardinals was when Mikolas was pitching against the Dodgers, and homeboy got smoked in the first inning for 5 runs. And it's not that anything was on the Cardinals defensively. It was the fact that like he just put the Cardinals in such a horrible position. Like there were home runs he was giving up, like didn't have a great ERA, didn't have a great whip, 33 years old. And, you know, if you want to be a contender and you want to win 95 plus games, you need 1 through 5 to be elite. And it's very hard to have someone holding you back while also managing to win 95 games. So I think the only way they can really do that is if he steps it up.
Yeah, and back end pitching is going to be pretty prevalent within the St. Louis Cardinals. It's going to tie in very nicely to the positioning of this team. And I think we went kind of unanimous on this team has to buy. Me and Mateo sort of hinted to you want to get that back end starter, someone that can get you those innings that can dominate in it as such, and even maybe a bullpen piece if you're not as confident in Alex Reyes. But you're going to have to definitely buy someone, and you're one piece away, like we've mentioned, because this lineup, top to bottom, still has another crack at the can when you're looking at this wide open NL Central. I don't know if we want to spend too much time on this because I want to make our way to the final one on the show.
I think we both, I mean, I had get one more bullpen pitcher and then obviously plan for a catcher in the future because Yadier Molina, I think this is his last year. So they definitely want to figure something out catching wise. So
and maybe that's Wilson Contreras.
In division, I don't know.
Just a thought. I mean, it'd be a rivalry. It'd be a cross between a rivalry. But if you're willing to pay enough, you're willing to pay enough, the Cubs may make the move. It all depends.
I don't know, man.
Depends also what the St. Louis Cardinals are at that trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't know if the Cubs are necessarily like in a mood to help a division rival team.
Well, they can always go after him in free agency next year too, right? Contract expiring, you know, it'll be a team. Yeah,
true. But I mean, ideally the Cubs would probably want to get something for him and not get nothing. And if they are going to get something, it's definitely not coming from a rival team.
Just a thought, just throwing it out there.
Food for
And
thought.
and very quickly, Ivan Herrera is looking to be the catcher in the prospect position. That is going to be probably replacing Molina as of right now. That's where the depth chart lies. And it's sort of interesting that we see Buster Posey recently retired. Yadier Molina is going to be following that same way very shortly. So, man, a generation of catchers that we got to see growing up,
Yeah.
even before our
Both of
time
them are
too.
top 10. Both
Top
of them are
10
top
catchers
10.
of all
Yeah.
time, man. They did what they had to do. They've made pitchers as good as they are. I think you go look at Buster Posey in San Fran making Madison Bumgarner what he was, just from my perspective of growing up. You go look at a guy like Adam Wainwright in respect to Yadier Molina. Good catchers make good pitchers. I think that's
And
the
Lincecum.
and Lincecum. Yeah, there's been a lot of
Kane.
so many players you could list off.
Yeah.
There was another guy from San Fran who kind of just fell off right after, but he was pretty high up in that rotation. That was a big byproduct of Buster Posey. I can't remember his name.
Jared Weave or Peavy.
Sala, something like that. I don't know.
I don't know,
I'll
man.
come
I
back
don't
to
like
it
them
some
enough
other
to
time.
give them the respect.
Well, you don't like a lot of things on this show, but I'm hoping you maybe have a.
We always hear about what Evan doesn't
Yeah,
like.
there's never something he does
Yeah.
like. Let me see if he
No.
likes something like this. The Cincinnati Reds are our next team, our final team on the roster, on the show. Their offseason grade, I had to give them a C. They let Castellanos go, which is a pretty tough one to swallow. He was your big power bat, but he's not going to be there anymore. And it's looking like the DH. I don't know if it's been confirmed. I'm assuming it's been
I think it
confirmed.
has been.
I think, yeah, it's around there. And I think it's going to be following the same path of what we've been saying in the upcoming weeks, in the previous weeks leading up to this show, that the DH is going to be making its way to the NL permanently. And Castellanos, that's only good news for you because you're going to cash in your money because that's what you do best. Defense has not always been there, but the power out of that bat is bodacious. So offseason great for the Reds. Got to give them a C, and they're going to be pretty big sellers, especially with their pitching rotation. I know that the Jays have been rumored on hitting up that mill with the. I believe they got a couple pitchers that they can
Castellanos, Gray.
We got a bunch of guys.
Castillo, you mean? Yeah.
Castillo.
Yeah.
Oh, Castillo.
Castillo, Gray.
Luig.
Some guys, but I want to turn over to you guys. What do you guys see as their offseason grade for Cincinnati Reds? We haven't seen the full offseason yet, but maybe when it resumes, some other guys start to jump ship or leave ship of the Cincinnati Reds. Mateo, I'll go with you.
It's a C minus, if not lower. I mean, you had to bring Castellanos back, even now more so with the advent of the universal DH. I mean, the best way to convince your guys to stay is to win games. And, Cincinnati has promised the world to some of these players and has come up short. And so it's not a surprise that a lot of these guys are a little bit, distraught with the way that this team has been going, Castellanos included. But you had to bring him back. And the fact that all reports show that he's not willing to come back. I mean, nothing's off the table just yet, which is why it's not lower for me. But the fact that you're not going to replace that much of a driving force in your offense is a little bit discouraging and might even have an impact on the rest of the players to say, if you're not committed to him, how committed to you are like with our success. Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, go on.
Mm-hmm.
Go on.
No, I just think it sends a sour message when you let one of your best players go like that, especially in a time where he's, probably most valuable, like more valuable than he's ever been. So yeah, it's a C minus with the potential to get lower depending on how the rest of the offseason shakes out.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not the first time that the Reds haven't been able to offer money. I know Wade Miley, I believe, was one that didn't get a qualifying offer, and he had a terrific season very shortly after. So this is something that's been nipping Cincinnati Reds for quite a while. It's looking like they're kind of developing the farm system even more, and they had a little bit of murmurs within the playoffs. I know they got bounced very quickly against the Atlanta Braves in that expanded bubble year, if you want to call it. But no, the Cincinnati Reds are in a real tough position. I can see Gray Castillo's getting traded just as soon as this offseason opens back up. Evan, do you say the same things? Do you see the same things coming from Cincinnati?
Yeah. I mean, it sucks that they agreed on the universal DH after they had not figured out something with Nick Castellanos, because now, like, someone who could possibly make anywhere from 15 million is probably now going to make 18 to 19, just given the fact that he can play the DH role on a day that you don't need him in the outfield. So it was a tough. I gave him a C minus as well. I don't feel like I understand Nick Castellanos and why he wants to go to a contender. I mean, the two teams he's played for is Detroit and Cincinnati, so it's not like he's really experienced winning that much. So I do respect the fact, he's 29. He definitely wants that bling on the left, and it just makes sense that he'll go. Like, there's going to be contending teams, especially if the NL is serious about this universal DH. I mean, teams like I would say maybe even like Milwaukee offers him, DH wise, he could play there. They're in the AL, he can go there. I mean, there's just so many options now.
Yeah, and I mean the Cincinnati Reds are just in a very weird
They're in
situation
a
where
tough spot.
they're in a tough spot. They're in that middle ground where you have to pick a pretty hefty side as to if you want to keep going and trying to form something that's somewhat sustainable in a wide open division, or do you want to just cut it off all now? Because Joey Votto is only getting older. Jesse Winker is not going to be posting seasons like he did last year. There's going to be a lot of loose pieces that you don't know, a lot of uncertainties with the Reds heading into this season. So you have to pick a side. And it's looking like once free agency resumes and the offseason resumes, that some of these guys, like you mentioned, Evan, starting pitchers to name a few, are going to be making their way to other destinations. And I think that's something that's remaining prevalent in the Reds. Do you want to say something, Mateo?
Yeah, part of me wonders how much of this Castellanos thing is like a negotiating power play. I mean, we all knew that the CBA was ending this year. I mean, it didn't make much sense for Castellanos to accept that player option, but part of me wonders, I believe he's a Scott Boras guy as well, right? So part of me wonders, part of me wonders how much of this is a negotiation play, knowing that the universal DH was probably going to come. I mean, this was something that had been, forethought for a few years now at this stage. Part of me wonders why he would have accepted the player option, to be honest, and whether this is all just to give him leverage in contract negotiation when he knows he could make up to potentially $10 million more now. And even if that's not with Cincinnati, it's just kind of interesting to consider that this is happening right now and not a few years ago or a few years from now. It's happening right now as the universal DH is coming, and Castellanos' value has never been higher. I think this is something to consider.
It's a smart move. No, his value just went up a couple schmillion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the teams are going to be knocking on Castellanos' door right when everything resumes. I wouldn't even be surprised if stuff are happening right now. We don't even know about it. It's unofficial, under the table, something like that. But maybe he already has a deal in place. Who knows? Because when it comes to DHs, we know how much it can make a difference to a team's roster, their outlook, and a lot of these NL National League teams have struggles within the offensive production. If you bring in a guy in like Nick Castellanos, you can maybe even see him going to another team in the NL Central, such as the Milwaukee Brewers. We were talking about how they're one big bat away. And I know we want to see the first baseman, but it doesn't really matter at the position anymore if you're getting a guy like Nick Castellanos in your lineup. So interesting destination for Nick Castellanos, to say the least. But I want to ask you guys very quickly, if you could list off the record. I know we're not running a little bit slim on time. We have other stuff to do, but the record for the Cincinnati Reds, I got them at 75 wins, ceiling 80. That might be a little bit too generous with the trend that this team is heading towards. Evan, I'll start with you, and then I'll make my way to Mateo to finish.
Yeah, I'll go record 74 wins with a ceiling of 78.
Yeah, okay. And Mateo, what about you?
I got 83 wins with a ceiling of 87, maybe a little higher on them, but I think they still have a little bit of talent on that roster, and they can win a few games.
Yeah, and I mean, the lineup just goes to show. Oh, there goes my light. This thing always shuts off at the worst time. I don't think it's ever lasted me a full episode. Yesterday night, we were doing the Leafs Line podcast. I came close. It was in the last minutes of our episode and just shut off on me, man.
Yeah.
So one day, my old computer is going to power this light for a full episode.
Let there be light.
Let there be light, and let there be light for some of these players on the Cincinnati Reds, including team MVP that I think is always going to be a team MVP. One of the soft spots in my heart, just because he's a local kid, Joey Votto. He always seems to get it done. Probably the definition of a contact hitter, and even in response to some of the power that he was posting last year as well. He was at one point in MVP talks just because of what he was bringing to the Cincinnati Reds, propelling them to the season that. Not that they did have, but a season that they could have had if it wasn't for the other players surrounding him. But what do you guys make of the team MVP from the Reds perspective? I got Votto. Who do you got, Mateo?
Yeah, I hate to go against the local boy, but Jonathan India is my pick for team MVP. Oh, sorry, Evan. We can share.
Dude, I thought that was a sneaky one, and this one I can't forget.
You can jump on it after too, but he's a guy that is probably one of the most likely guys to stick with the Cincinnati Reds, and I think that was a big factor in determining who would be the MVP for me as well. As he's a guy that they're going to hold on to. He's a guy that he's going to have all the opportunities in the world to play, and he's a guy that you like what you saw from him last year, even though necessarily the batting average wasn't there, and that might turn a few people away. 270 is not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not going to turn heads. But for me, it's that OPS 835. I mean, incredible player, great defender, and he's a guy who's going to hit you some power numbers and is going to get on base. So Jonathan India, really solid player, going to get a lot of opportunities. He's my team MVP.
And the future lies in him. He
Mhm.
can do just about everything. And Evan, I know you can do just about everything, but what does the future
Yeah,
lie in you for this pick?
I said Jonathan India for the same reasons that Mateo did.
Come
Like
on.
I I picked him. I picked him first. Not fair. Uh,
That's fair.
but no, I mean he he was definitely a bright spot for this team behind the guys of Votto, Castillo, Sonny Gray from time to time. And I mean, he did win out Rookie of the Year, batting 270, which isn't terrible for a rookie. Even if he can get that number up to like 290, I know that's a little bit of a reach, but in that 285, 290 range and continue with power. And I mean, he also has the speed as well. I think he's just an all around talent that if there's someone that you want to build around, it's probably going to be Jonathan India. Because I had them, I mean, positioning wise, I had them as a retooling team because I don't think they need to sell the house, but I mean, they have necessary pieces to formulate something within the future.
Yeah, I don't think they want to sell the house.
No.
I don't think they should sell the house. I think they want to just go out and do it because
Yeah.
that's just the way the Cincinnati Reds roll. They don't want to. They're one of those teams that you might not think it, but they don't always want to spend that crazy
Uh-huh.
amounts of money on numerous players. So, I mean, I've been reading a lot recently on the Reds that they just want to start fresh and develop the farm system a lot more because their farm system isn't very good in
It's not
comparison to
good.
what we've seen in many other teams that have been in rebuilding stage. And this is no joke. The Cincinnati Reds have been a tough team for quite a while. And
Mhm.
you would think over those really tough years, those tough sledding years in the MLB, that they would develop a young organization that you can call up players in this nowadays, what we're calling present day baseball. And they still are yet to do that. So they really shot themselves in the foot a while ago. And I think they're paying the consequences now when they're stuck in this tough stage
Yeah.
between rebuild or retool. And we're going to see it as the offseason resumes. I'm going to go to this one. Team Cy Young. I got Luis Castillo if he so does stay with this team. I know it's a rumor that he's going to
Yeah.
be going elsewhere, but there's going to be, I think there's 2 or 3 pitchers that are rumored to go elsewhere on the Cincinnati Reds. Dale, who do you got for the Team Cy Young?
Also got Castillo, nothing special there. I
Yeah.
mean, he's far and away the best pitcher on this team. I think we can call this one unanimous.
Yeah, unanimous.
For sure. And I mean, I want to go to this one, the final one here for the player standpoint, make or break. And I got Jesse Winker if he can repeat the success that he had last year. This guy, I mentioned Joey Votto was mentioned in MVP talks, all that jazz, but so was Jesse Winker. He was having a career year, something that I personally don't think is going to relive. It's something that he really got his fair share of things. And if it was his contract year, it would have been just as much better. But no, if he can repeat that success he had last season, he's definitely a make or break player for the Cincinnati Reds, and maybe can get them to a little bit more of a competitive stage, something that we can maybe surpass the records that we've been posting. But what do you guys have for the make or break? I'll go with you, Evan, and then I'll make my way to Mateo.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I don't know how to pronounce Aristides Aquino.
Oh,
I
come
can't
on.
pronounce his.
You did
Are
it to
you
me.
fucking
It's
nerd?
back and forth with these guys. He was waiting
Dude,
for
I was hoping Mario would pick me first because I had a feeling you
Oh
were
my
picking
God.
him.
I
I
know me
had
too
a
well.
feel. No, I was like, I had a feeling you were gonna go with him. I don't know why. Just internally, I felt that.
Go
But
ahead, have your
yeah, I
moment.
mean, I will have my moment, you damn right. No, I mean, he was talked about like Aquino. I remember like when he first came in to the MLB a few years ago. He was talked about possibly being a 35 home run hitter. I think he hit like 19 home runs in his first season in the MLB, and then it just kind of regressed ever since. He was talked about a lot in the media, and now it's just hasn't been anything of him as of late. And 27 years old, so this is definitely like the prime of someone's career when they're going to probably see the most success. And Aquino just hasn't had that in these last 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's a guy
Who's yours?
I think it was 7 home runs in his first 10 games. I mean, he's a guy
Yeah.
that, ever since then has sort of fallen off the map. And you're just wondering, like, what do you have in Aristides Aquino? And this might be the last year that you explore sort of those options and what you do have with him. I think Evan, summed up a lot of the key points there. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting year to see how much of a leash they're willing to give him.
Absolutely. And last but certainly not least, the positioning of the Cincinnati Reds. Buy, sell, or stay. We mentioned how much they're in a tough spot in regards to which way they want to choose. If you're going to choose buy, you got to choose it fast once this offseason resumes. You want to choose sell, you're going to have to sell a lot of the capital, and you're going to have to understand that your team's going to go through a little bit of a rough patch as a result. So where do you guys see this team? Buy, sell, or stay? I got them at buy. Maybe you can make a little bit of a run with some outfield help, maybe. But I know you're losing Castellanos, likely to the universal DH, but no, where do you guys see it?
I don't know. I have them. Oh, you go.
Okay. Yeah. My heart wants them to buy. I mean, but it's really ultimately about getting the players that you have right now to sort of buy into what you're going to do in the future. And you got to be honest with them. You got to be transparent. And you got to like outline to them, this is the plan going forward. And so I want you to buy, but you got to also get the players to buy in as well if you're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have them selling because we mentioned, the prospect pool isn't the greatest. We'll talk about this team later, but a team, I know I'm going to sound like a biased idiot, but a team like the Dodgers have a great prospect pool in terms of pitching. And there was always reports about, they need another pitcher with Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin not being, the most ideal fifth or fourth starter to have. And they have a lot of pitchers that they can offer to the Reds. I think you got to look at a team and understand that, like, look, if we're going to suck, like, we might as well suck. I don't think there's a point in bringing hope to your fan base that you have a chance at the playoffs. And I know, like, baseball's an interesting sport. It's the most games out of any, of the major four sports. So there's so many opportunities to somehow sneak into the playoffs, but they most likely will have to get in as a wild card team. And I think that there's too many teams ahead of them, especially if they lose Castellanos, that will slide into that wild card team and leave them out of the playoffs. And I think for that reason, they should sell.
Very interesting to say the least. And I think we'll leave it at that. That'll wrap up this, our second last episode of Breaking News Bears in regards to division previews. That is your guys is NL Central. First episode, might add, bless you, Mateo. First episode, might add, for DSN, and you're going to catch all of them up and coming on Dynasty Sports Network. Link is in the description. Go check it out. But that'll do it for me. Again, I'm Mayor Russo, joined by Evan Davis and Mateo Ruiz, signing off for you from this NL Central preview. Can't wait for the season to get started. I'm hoping it's going to be soon because I can assure you guys are as well, craving for some baseball. Hopefully we'll see it soon. I will catch you guys on the flip side. I will see you guys later.